If we had handled it differently, I would say that. But how I'm watching it, it's a nuclear deal. I don't think anything's changing.
But I don't think a 19% chance is a great.
The U.S. Navy spent over a decade and hundreds of millions of dollars building a weapon that fires metal at Mach 7. They canceled it anyway, and right now, while Russia is firing hypersonic missiles into Ukraine, the U.S. Navy is scrambling to figure out how it wins the next big war when the weapon that replaced that railgun cost over $100 million per shot. So what happened? Why'd the Navy walk away from cheap hypersonic metal and bet everything on missiles that could bankrupt a fleet in an afternoon? Hit subscribe and let's get started. Here's what you need to understand first. Modern naval warfare isn't just expensive, it's bankruptingly expensive. Every missile the Navy fires costs more than most people will earn in a lifetime. The threats those missiles are chasing, they're getting faster, smarter, and coming in swarms. The Navy's nightmare isn't a single incoming missile, it's 100 of them, fired simultaneously from multiple vectors against one ship. If you burn a $2 million interceptor to stop every cheap drone or anti-ship missile an adversary launches, you don't win the war. You lose the budget war first. That's the problem that made the railgun look like a genius solution. And that's the same problem that made hypersonic missiles an almost painful necessity. So let's run them head to head. Because these two weapons aren't just different technologies, they're completely different answers to what naval war actually is. The electromagnetic railgun isn't complicated in concept. Two conductive rails, massive electrical current, magnetic force that launches a projectile down the barrel at velocities conventional guns can't touch. We're talking Mach 6, Mach 7, even higher in testing. No explosive warhead, no propellant, just a dense metal rod hitting so fast that the physics does all the killing for you. At those speeds, you don't need an explosion. A tungsten projectile traveling several kilometers per second doesn't ask for permission. It punches through ship hulls, reinforced structures, and incoming threats on pure kinetic energy alone. Think of it as dropping a truck from orbit. The speed is the weapon. Now think about what that means for a warship's magazine. You're not loading explosive shells. You're not stacking propellant charges next to each other in a hull. You're storing inert metal rods. One direct hit into a conventional magazine is a catastrophic secondary explosion that kills the ship. With railgun rounds, that risk drops dramatically. Cheaper rounds, safer storage, faster reload. It checks every box a naval planner loves. The numbers the Navy's testing programs were throwing around were extraordinary. More than 30 megajoules of muzzle energy. Ranges well beyond 100 nautical miles in some projections. The Zumwalt-class destroyer, built from the keel up with integrated electric drive systems, looked like the perfect platform. This was the vision, a stealthy destroyer hurling hypersonic metal across the South China Sea without burning a single $1 million interceptor. So why didn't it happen? Because the gun was never really the problem. The ship was the problem, and that's the part nobody talks about. To fire one shot, a railgun demands an enormous pulse of electricity in a fraction of a second. That means massive capacitor banks, sophisticated power conditioning systems, and careful electrical load management across the entire ship. Every shot is a power event that the whole vessel has to plan around. Then the barrel starts dying. The electromagnetic forces trying to shove that projectile downrange are also trying to tear the rails apart. Heat, plasma, friction, and repeated stress chew through the barrel at a rate that made sustainment planners wince. Barrel erosion wasn't a minor engineering challenge. It was a fundamental physics problem that kept resisting solutions. Meanwhile, the projectile itself has to survive acceleration so violent that guidance electronics couldn't reliably survive the launch. You can't steer a round that gets its brain scrambled in the barrel. Now, layer the operational reality on top of that. The Navy needed this weapon to defend ships under attack. That means it has to fire repeatedly, reliably, under combat stress, on a moving deck, in salt air, in a ship already absorbing hits. Every time the barrel wears down faster than expected, every time the power systems need recovery time between shots, every time a precision guidance package fails the launch forces, the cheap shot gets a little less cheap and a lot less dependable. And here's where the comparison with hypersonic missiles starts to bite, because the railgun's biggest operational flaw isn't that it's slow to develop, it's that it doesn't solve the hardest problem. A hypersonic missile doesn't ask the ship to become a floating electrical experiment. It sits in a launch cell, it launches, and then it becomes the enemy's problem, not yours. We're talking Mach 5 and above, sustained maneuvering flight, not just a ballistic arc. That's what separates hypersonic missiles from everything that came before them. A ballistic missile goes up and comes down on a predictable trajectory. Defenders have modeled that flight path for 70 years, a hypersonic glide vehicle or cruise missile at Mach 8 pulling lateral maneuvers. That compresses the defender's decision timeline from minutes to seconds. There's no comfortable response window. By the time radar confirms the track, the geometry's already changed. Look at what's happening right now. Russia's been firing Kinzhal hypersonic missiles into Ukraine. China's DFZF glide vehicles are specifically designed to kill U.S. carrier groups before they get close enough to matter. The entire strategic logic of the Pacific is being rewritten around the question of who can strike first, from farthest away, against the most defended targets. That's not a railgun fight. That's a hypersonic missile fight. That's why the Navy pivoted. Not because the railgun was embarrassing, it wasn't. The engineering achievements were real, but hypersonic missiles delivered immediate operational relevance in the exact missions the fleet actually cares about: long-range strike, maritime attack, and punching through layered air defenses that are getting smarter every year. The railgun could threaten targets maybe 100-plus nautical miles away under ideal conditions. The Navy's hypersonic programs and the weapons adversaries are already deploying operate at ranges that start where the railgun maxes out. But here's where it gets uncomfortable, because hypersonic missiles aren't a clean win either, and the Navy knows it. A single hypersonic missile can cost $40 million, $60 million, $100 million, or more depending on the program. The Navy's conventional prompt strike program is targeting exactly that kind of capability. Every ship carries a finite number of launch cells. Every shot is a massive expenditure, financial and strategic. That's the brutal irony. The railgun was supposed to solve the cost problem. Hypersonic missiles made the cost problem worse. You're now spending more per shot than ever against adversaries who are specifically building cheap, numerous threats designed to drain exactly that magazine. So why does the Navy accept it? Because in the current threat environment, Russia's hypersonic arsenal, China's carrier-killing missile chains, Iran's growing missile inventory, a weapon you trust beats a cheaper weapon you can't fully rely on yet. The Navy would rather pay for a Mach 8 weapon that shows up ready for a real fight than keep chasing a railgun breakthrough while the security environment deteriorates around them. That's not a permanent answer. It's a painful interim one. Here's what's interesting. The railgun didn't completely disappear. Its most practical child is the hypervelocity projectile, a round engineered with railgun DNA that fires from a conventional 5-inch naval gun using a sabot and standard propellant. It's not Mach 7. It's not hitting 100-plus nautical miles. But it's faster than anything a conventional gun fires. It's cheaper than a missile, and it fires from hardware that's already on the fleet. The Navy didn't throw away the physics lesson. They stripped out the impossible architecture and kept the piece that actually worked. That's a very Navy solution. And the broader power story, that's very much alive. Ford-class carriers are built around massive electrical generation capacity. Future destroyers are trending in the same direction. High-powered lasers, directed energy systems, rail-adjacent tech. All of it feeds off electrical power budgets that keep growing. The railgun may have lost the battle, but it helped define the battlefield. Picture two different engagements. In the first one, a destroyer deploys its railgun against an incoming threat. The ship needs stored power ready to pulse. The barrel needs to be healthy. The cooling has to be functioning. The target has to be within the engagement window. The projectile leaves at Mach 7 and hits with devastating kinetic force if everything went right before the trigger was pulled. In the second fight, a hypersonic missile leaves a launch cell and immediately starts compressing the enemy's decision timeline. It's maneuvering, it's fast, it's already past the horizon. The enemy's radar operators are watching a track that keeps changing geometry, and they've got maybe 30 seconds to decide whether their interceptor can even catch it. One weapon demands that the ship solve the problem. The other weapon gives the problem to the enemy. That's the difference that settled the argument. This isn't abstract. Right now, the U.S. Navy is watching China deploy Type 055 destroyers with anti-ship ballistic missiles. It's watching Russia prove that hypersonic weapons can penetrate Patriot batteries in an active war. It's watching Iran demonstrate that cheap drone swarms can threaten multi-billion-dollar assets. The fleet can't afford to be wrong. It can't afford to show up to that fight with a weapon that works in a lab and struggles on a salt-soaked deck in the middle of a Pacific storm while the ship's already absorbing hits. Hypersonic missiles aren't perfect, but they're proven enough to make the bet worthwhile right now. The Railgun taught the Navy one lesson that'll shape everything going forward. Raw speed isn't enough. A weapon's got to fit the ship, fit the doctrine, fit the logistics chain, and keep performing when the conditions turn ugly. Hypersonic missiles, expensive and demanding as they are, fit that picture today. The Railgun doesn't yet. If you're building the future U.S. fleet, do you keep pouring money into hypersonic missiles that you know will drain the magazine fast in a real fight? Or do you take another serious run at the Railgun, better materials, bigger power plants, smarter integration, and try to actually solve the cheap shot problem before China outbuilds you in sheer numbers? Yeah, because that trade-off is happening right now in budget rooms in Washington, and whoever gets it right shapes the next 30 years of naval power. Drop your answer below. And if this kind of analysis is what you're here for, hit that subscribe button so we can keep bringing you videos like these.